I hate when shortcut command. Whoa, we're just flying everywhere. I hate when shortcut keys like override anything to do with like text shortcuts, like command arrow to go to the beginning of the line or whatever, right? And any sort of text box. To me, if I'm in a text box, then that should be like a priority over any shortcut that other apps have.
Agreed.
Even if it's like a shortcut within that app, should still respect the fact that I'm in a text box.
Right.
Somehow. I don't know how that, if that makes sense, but some apps are rude about it. So, Tim, fresh from your fight with bungee cords.
Yes. I lost the battle.
Yeah.
Hopefully not the war.
Learned valuable lessons.
I did.
Along the way. It's not the scars, it's the bungee cords we kissed along the way or something, or I don't know what the saying is.
I didn't grow up in Canada, so I don't have any cute bungee sayings.
Yeah. I haven't actually heard, we'll do our brief political venting for a second here. I haven't heard a ton of the outcries of like, can we move to Canada this time, as much as we did the first go round. But maybe
I think we feel even worse than the last time. Like,
I guess
last
maybe
time Canada was just, a quiet observer, but now we're actually inflicting pain on Canada, and we're like, I don't know if they're going to want us.
Yeah.
So,
because I guess, this time he preemptively like started off by just kicking dirt in our face. So it was kind of like, they don't want us to even mention their name anyways. They're already annoyed with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is nice to, victories are being claimed by the person in charge, but it is nice that the quote unquote concessions that Canada and Mexico have made were deals that were made under the previous administration and are already in place.
Yeah. It was a fun one to explain to my kids too, because I was like, they're in high school, so they're hearing stuff and whatever, and just kind of like talking through some of that stuff from their perspective is a little more skewed by whatever they might have seen on reels or, friends in class and things like that. But yeah, the one where he's like claiming victory for things that actually Biden did, and then Jon Stewart had a great like one of those clips of like him blaming the previous administration for this deal with Canada that actually was Trump's deal with Canada as well. Like just the beauty of flipping it both ways, where he just can't get any of it straight.
Yeah. So it's clear that the real problem at this moment is not the man in the White House. It's this particular second. It's not Trump so much as it is Musk.
Yeah.
So we're trying to take care of that. And
Good luck.
It's going to take some courage from Congress and the courts to do it. Please and thank you.
Yes. I saw where I shared this already, but someone had shared the idea of like just booking anonymous appointments to take Teslas for a test drive, just like 10, which obviously is unfortunately annoying to just the local people who aren't Musk himself, but just figuratively spinning the wheels of a car and wasting their time is like a very microaggression.
I did see today that last year sales of the Model 3 or whatever were down like 30%. And they're down something like 60% in the EU.
Yeah.
So it's possible that the Tesla board might make some moves this year, but I think the value of the company would have to drop first.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this stuff isn't based in reality.
No. It's all the points are made up and the rules don't matter.
Yeah.
For some folks anyway. Anyways, on less depressing topics, we're going to take a little detour from the Why Did You Follow Me podcast configuration process. And I don't know if you saw, I know I shared it with you, so I'm sort of pretending like we haven't talked about this already. Let's go to the desktop view with us. I think that's the right one. Oh, you're not there. Try it again. There we go. Now we got both of us. This is a thing that's been done years, like over and over, and I think I've even done it years ago on a different blog where you write a blog post, and then for whatever reason I thought, it'd be kind of fun because Ghost is the CMS I use, and they have a built-in, upload an MP3 file, and it becomes an audio player.
When there's daily.
And so that's great. But the problem is, from a podcaster nerd perspective, from a vanity perspective, first of all, I don't have analytics to know if anybody's actually playing it, which bothers me more than it should. And
Yeah.
then also from a audio podcast nerd perspective, there isn't a way. Someone was like, "Oh, that's great. They can just subscribe and just listen to the audio version," which I guess it might be in the RSS feed as well for the blog, maybe. So you technically could probably subscribe to it somehow if you knew how to find the RSS. But it's not a podcast that you can just like tell. I could not just
Right.
link to it in the Apple Podcast app and or whatever. And so I thought it'd be an interesting little experiment here if you'll permit me the what's the word I'm looking for? The indulgence
Hmm.
of actually just setting it up as a proper podcast. And then very likely I will do this one. I'll record one more blog post as an audio file and realize that's a lot of extra work and never do it again. So it'll be as they say in podcasting, a pod faded podcast, probably after 3 episodes. But anyway, it's a fun experiment. So
Okay.
how's that sound?
Let's do it. Sounds great.
Okay, so just to start from literally scratch, so I've got a Transistor account already, transistor.fm, not a sponsor of the show, but friend of the person or whatever, and clients that use it, etc. And so
As
I'm
they
just,
say on one of the magic YouTube channels I watch, when they have a little tool that they use frequently, and they often say, "Use this thing, not a sponsor,
yeah,
just a cool tool."
exactly. Transistor's not a sponsor, but indirectly, actually, they're a sponsor because they've gifted me an account at one point, and so that's basically how I get by on the internet is working and long enough for bugging companies long enough to give me a little free account that I barely use, and then I can play with it forever. So indirectly, they've sponsored me for a while now, but they're also a client of mine, so it's kind of a symbiotic relationship. Except, anyways, let's not go there. Okay, so when you set up a new account or new podcast with Transistor, one of the nice things is you can actually import an existing podcast. I'll just do a little divergent pitch for Transistor here since they sponsor me indirectly. You can move a podcast very easily, so you could bring your RSS feed or just find your podcast. So, Tim, what's your favorite podcast right now? Let's just see.
What's my favorite podcast right now? Dr. Game Show.
Dr. Game Show for maximum fun. So technically, I guess this is a bad example because I shouldn't show that you could do this, and people doing this are very annoying. But you can actually turn off away in the RSS feed if they've done it properly. You can actually say, "Do not allow this to be imported elsewhere," etc.
Oh, interesting.
But
How?
it's a flag
Okay.
that's respected by some podcast hosts, but it doesn't have to
Okay,
be.
I see.
So Transistor, I
Yeah,
know
it's
would.
like on a website it has a robots.txt file to ask robots to behave a certain way, and
Bingo. Yeah.
whether the robots do that or not is up to the robots.
So technically, like any RSS feed, you could take it and repurpose it or make it your own as if you were Dr.
Sure.
Game Show. But for the sake of this podcast, anyways, here, I'll just use my old podcast that isn't there. I could actually import that podcast because it happens to be an Apple podcast. And
Right.
then it would just, Transistor would do all the work of setting it up. So if you're looking for a new
Got it.
podcast
Got it.
host, as you should, if you're
So if
not
you're
with Transistor.
migrating from one platform to another,
Yeah, or a dying platform. Let's say they're going out of business or whatever might be happening, or you've done it
got it.
manually. So
Right.
you can also set
and
up
all you would need to point to, like you wouldn't even need that platform to point to. You would just need an RSS feed
yeah, you
and
can
the
just
files to live somewhere.
exactly.
For
Yeah,
it
the
to
files
be
have to be on the
served
web
into-
for it to pull it in. Yeah, just like if you're
Yep.
moving a web host from one to another or whatever.
Yep. Got it.
Similarly, you can also set up a private podcast where you'd actually have people required to subscribe, and then they each get an individual RSS feed that they would throw into their podcast player of choice. And I'm on a 500 subscriber plan, but of course, there's more if you were like a corporate whatever one. There used to be a thing where like a CEO would maybe do like a private podcast for their business, or you can imagine many different scenarios where not just for like membership and branding or whatever, but also for like an abuse center, let's say, or whatever, where it's helping people. You maybe would have a private podcast for people who are, or a therapist maybe, or whatever. You can't give it out publicly, but you want to just sort of have it semi-private anyways, because obviously anything on the internet technically is probably could be public, but
Yeah.
so that not just everybody can access it. It doesn't get listed
Interesting.
in Apple Podcasts, etc.
Got it.
That kind of idea. And then also Transistor does this thing where they've got a free podcast website. So if you already have a podcast that doesn't generate a website for you, you don't want to go through the work of hiring Tim to build you a WordPress maybe site to host your podcast. You can actually just use Transistor and again plug in your podcast, and it will just build a little quick podcast website for you using your existing hosting plan wherever that may be. Just maybe nicer looking or whatever. So for the purposes of what we're doing, we're going to configure a new podcast, And I
And
should have
let's
actually,
just step back
yeah.
to like step zero and just make sure. I don't know how many people are confused about this, but I still stumble across it. A podcast is a show with multiple episodes. A
Mhm.
podcast episode is the single episode.
Yes.
Listen to my podcast means listen to all the episodes. Listen to this episode is listen to one episode.
And it seems like this isn't like correlate. No, yeah. It seems like the richer you are, the more likely you are to say, "I've got a
Podcast.
guest on my pod,"
Oh, really?
or, or "Hey, subscribe to my pod," or "Who do we have on the pod today?" That
Interesting.
I'm doing very sweeping generalizations, but it's like that's a little tick that you can tell how pedantic or whatever
Hmm.
a podcaster person is whether they start twitching when you say pod instead of podcast or podcast. Yeah. So in the same way that like a blogger would say, I write a blog post, I don't write a
Right, right.
blog
Blog,
today.
blog post,
Yeah.
podcast, podcast episode.
Yeah. Who do we have on the
Yeah,
episode today, maybe, or who do we have on this week, or
yeah.
which there's no legal rules behind that. I don't even know if it's in the dictionary, but yeah, you can definitely tick off an older school podcaster by just calling it pod. So I have actually gone to the point of debating whether I should edit with
Pod.
AI client who kept calling it a pod just for my own ears, which I didn't. Just for the record, I didn't. I wasn't. That's their word, not mine. So thank you for that. I appreciate the call out for that. But definitely, if you listen to celebrities, they would call it a pod often. Who do we have on the pod
Mm.
today? Kind of thing. So for the this is what you would walk through with any podcast. So for the purposes of my purposes, actually that's what I was going to check before I do this is make sure I don't have one still. Nope, someone else's. If it was, it's gone in the Apple Podcast section, anyways. Because I feel like I used to have that at one point. So Chris, I'm Chris. Tim, I was thinking chrisens.com is my domain name. This goes back to the, what do we call it? So I have my website for reasons is named Far Away So Close. It's a U2 song reference for anybody who cares. The domain name is chrisens.com. What should I call my podcast? The audio blog podcast itself.
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah, there's
I
no
thought,
rule.
thought you'd have something clever lined up already.
No, unfortunately, I'm not clever today.
What's
Like
the name
far away,
of the blog?
so close. Like audio edition would be like the or director's commentary
Yet
would be
so
a fun
far.
way. Yet so far,
Yeah,
like that in brackets.
sure.
So the cool thing is you can actually change this later. There's nothing hard coded. Well, I mean it is hard coded, but there's nothing about the title itself that can't be changed later and doesn't wreck people's subscriptions. That's all
Yeah.
done through an RSS feed, so it doesn't really matter. I mean, it matters, but it doesn't. So
I have noticed that some weird caching, like whenever caching gets involved, stuff can get tough.
yeah,
I noticed the other day that in Overcast, the Judge John Hodgman blog's description block is still from like 15 years ago.
oh yeah, which that can be because they maybe, I guess, depends on where and when they've updated it too. Like if you check two different podcast apps, it should be consistent because it would be just one RSS feed. But it's
Hmm.
also, if a show has been around as long as his has and other shows like that, it's very
Yeah,
possible there's some sort of like rickety one RSS feed that also gets updated over here by this RSS feed somehow. And
sure.
that's
Right,
where,
right.
yeah.
Or like Overcast is giving priority to some field that's either been deprecated or people forgot about or
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. It is a standard, but it's also up to
Yeah.
everybody to respect that standard, I guess. Of the blog posts, I can't type. Audio version of the blog posts located on, include the domain somewhere. We'll get to the artwork in a second. So choosing a category, again, it used to matter way more than it does. It obviously helps sort of people find you, but,
Hmm.
and you can sort of like get some ranking within each category. So you could say, I'm the number one podcast in health and fitness or whatever.
Right. Why does it matter less now?
Well, there's a lot more categories, first of all, I guess. And so they've, like, you can kind of niche down into each subcategory. Like when John Hodgman's podcast started, there probably was just science and religion and spirituality and news, like the top level categories.
Right.
They didn't have subcategories as much. And so it's great for like finding things, but it also makes it, just that much harder to be like in the top 10 of sports, let's say, or whatever,
Sure.
just because there's so many more shows.
Right.
So I think there's a journal or something, Life. It's a little fuzzy on what you'd pick, why, and why.
Well, I would think it would be easier to rank in these more granular categories, as you say, because like on Amazon, oh, my book is number one in self help / Asian cooking / DIY.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and that's where probably like they used to only feature like news on the top, like that top level category in say Apple Podcasts would be like, here's your shows in news, and they wouldn't necessarily feature subcategories as much. But my information on all that is based on old history, I guess. I don't actually use Apple Podcasts or any of the apps directly. I just search for the show I'm looking for and kind of ignore the here's what's featured these days. It used to be a big deal because they would actually, what was the category called? It was like new and noteworthy or whatever. It was like one category in Apple Podcasts. And basically every podcast at the time, for a while, was featured in new and noteworthy because there just wasn't that many podcasts. And so people would say like, hey, I'm on Apple Podcasts. But it's like, actually, you just submitted your RSS feed and that's
Yeah,
why you're
right.
there. So,
Yeah, people are used to platforms, and the whole decentralized thing is still difficult.
yeah,
As we're being reminded with the whole Mastodon situation.
yes.
It's like it's a little confusing, and it's a small cognitive barrier to entry.
So I'm going to choose for the purpose of this thing anyways. And again, these are things that can be changed later as well. Personal journal seems the most appropriate. And then maybe, I don't know, subcategory of writing or something. I forget. Technology probably is most appropriate for I'll just do technology. So I'm the creator. You can put the usual copyright information, blog. Keywords are kind of like, obviously, just for people searching for it in the audio journal. We'll maybe call it narration, maybe. I don't know. And then website is where the website is for your podcast. So my domain name. That's not the link to the RSS feed or anything. Time zone is only important if it matters to you what does it matter? I guess it'll matter on the CMS side. So if I that's why it does matter. I could schedule a post to appear tomorrow at 8 a.m. my time, and then it'll figure out obviously what that means for the rest of the world and
Right.
when they get it. But I can make sure that I know when it's going live. So contact plus audio blog we'll just do this. The owner email address is important in terms of, or it used to be more important in terms of submitting it to various podcast networks because Apple would actually email you to verify that are you actually there. These days they don't do that as much. As long as the feed is valid, there's a podcast episode in it, you're good to go. But it used to be much more important. And then you also used to have to have this. There's a checkbox here in Transistor. Any good podcast host will have this now, where you you had to have the email address in the RSS feed, which meant then, of course, it's open to being scraped by every single whatever out there. And then also the other flag here that I can set up right now is the explicit flag, which I don't know if I swear on my podcast or my blog ever. Occasionally, maybe. So, it used to be more important in terms of Apple actually like punishing you or removing your podcast if it had swearing period,
Right.
like way back in the day. So you didn't swear on a podcast, but these days you can just throw the flag in, and even then, if you don't and you slip up or whatever, they're not going to like smash your podcast to bits.
There's no authority.
Yeah. The only thing you would get slammed for in Apple Podcasts, anyways, is like hate speech and other things that
Right.
we.
And I suppose you would be risking negative comments from parents who had a podcast on and like, this wasn't marked explicit. My kids heard the F word.
Yeah, exactly. So it's still funny how these someone had a video where they were talking about, people dying, self-inflicted death. I'm even trying to navigate the word, but using
They're
the suicide.
unaliving themselves.
Yeah, unaliving as we'd say now. Yeah, on social media or whatever. But they used the suicide word, and that was YouTube flagged that video, and then it was getting demoted, even though it was kind of
Right.
just a informational, not yeah.
Yeah.
just a weird
Yeah.
world
Yeah.
we live in that way.
Yeah.
So I don't think I have to have the artwork. Um, I don't have really. Oh, there's an ugly face, a big face. Anyway, it's not ugly. Sorry, I don't mean to be. It's my face. So I'll just say for now, Chris face. Very cleverly named. The idea with artwork, just briefly, is I think we've talked about it before. Big square image, basically 3,000 pixels by 3,000 pixels, and you just want it to stand out in the midst of all the other stuff that's on the various podcast networks. I think I'll probably come back and change this to something with better, actual typography, so you can see. I would put
Yeah.
the name of the podcast, but I won't waste time on that one right now. So I'll just create the podcast. So now we've got a podcast. I could actually, if I really wanted to, I could share this RSS feed with Tim. He could subscribe to it, and he'd be able to get every episode that I release from here on out, no problem. One thing I haven't thought about actually is whether I should have a subdomain or a website for the podcast. This is where you get into duplication of content on the internet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it'll be, my plan is, much like this, I would just embed the Transistor episode player right in the post at the top. But then I could also have like podcast.chrishens.com, let's say, would be like one of these sites.
And but you can get past the duplicate issue by having a canonical meta tag in your HTML.
Right. Yeah, and for which basically is kind of like the not the robots, but yeah, in the HTML basically tells Google effectively and the AI bots when they come to slurp it up, which is the original content, which it isn't actually even. I'm just trying to think even from a usability. Would I ever want to link to it? Just the podcast episode, I would probably just always want to link to the blog post, because you don't have to have a website for it with a podcast host like Transistor. I think I'll leave it for now, so that it won't be there. I'll just I might have a page listing the details of how to subscribe.
Yeah, I think if you got your own website already, then save yourself the confusion and don't set up the individual website with the platform.
So just to show you, once the show is set up, so if you follow that Transistor, set up a new podcast thing, you can come back in here and mess with all the settings all over again. And I don't think there's anything, we kind of ran through a bunch of this once before. And I don't think there's anything worth changing, or I might enable MP3 downloads right on the embedded player so that people could go to the page if they wanted to for some reason, or maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. Anyways, all of this stuff, the social stuff, is basically just for the player if it got shared elsewhere, where it would have a page that would list all these details for the podcast. But again, because it's my own show or my own website, we're going to leave it off. I enable again, I touched on this in a previous episode of this conversation, but Open Podcast Prefix is open source tracking analytics for podcasts, and kind of just makes it.
What happened to FeedBurner? Is that still a thing?
It is. Well, Google bought it 10 years ago or whatever, but they've maintained it, even though they've shut everything else down that would be like that. And
interesting.
So it
I
hangs
assume it's
on.
like still the same.
Yeah, actually, it is. It was, I think. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, I used to be very familiar with this.
Feedburner.com. Let's just go this way. Oh, yeah. I don't think you can sign up new accounts for it, possibly, but they kept the old ones going just because it's like, which is odd because Google historically has often just killed things if they don't care about it anymore. But maybe because there's so many podcasts that are run through there.
So, it does actually look updated. But I used to, like, back in like the late 2000s, I was working for a media company. We ran a blog network, so I was intimately familiar with FeedBurner at the time.
Yeah, way too much time. It was the promise of like, wow, that Google's going to let everybody, serve up their RSS feed and get a bit of like track, because it wasn't just for podcasts, right? It was for everybody, any RSS feed.
Any RSS feed. Yeah.
Yeah. Which seemed very self-serving, like for Google, which in a good way, like it was for public for free. They would get all the RSS feeds submitted to them. And then also you could validate your feed to make sure it was good before it went to Google, let's
Yep.
say, or Apple Podcasts or wherever.
Right.
But I guess
And
maybe
you
just
would get,
there.
yeah, and you would get stats,
Yeah.
and they'd have a, like, it kind of informed their network of, or their portal for blogs, and like what was popular, what wasn't popular.
Yeah. So at any rate, basically, before I can do any sort of distribution of sharing it through Apple Podcasts, through Pocket Casts, through all the various podcast listing services, I have to have a episode first, of course. And so, luckily for us, I don't have to record a new episode because I did that one already. So, just walking through what I think I would do for this one is I'm going to just copy my title from my episode. I'm just going to close this before and I will drag the MP3 right on there, which is nice and small because it's just a, whatever that is, I don't know, 5 minutes or 3 minutes episode.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the description, I probably grab the, I don't really like this. What's that called? The meta, what's the meta tag for that called? I forget. On a podcast app, like the description field. Is that what it is on a podcast or a blog post? So this is basically whatever you put in the text field is obviously what's going to appear when you're listening to the podcast and in the description of the episode. So you could have as much as you want. I won't be putting much more in here in terms of like chapters and things like that, but it could all go in here. The alternate episode URL would be like if you wanted, when someone, so Tim subscribes to this, it actually would be applicable here because I think this is actually good use for it. I've rarely ever had use for it. But when someone clicks on the link in the podcast app, do you want them to go to the RSS feed URL, which could be wherever its default is, or do you want them to go somewhere else? And in this case, I actually want them to go somewhere else, which is my blog post about that same thing. So that any links, anything I'm discussing in the episode, any pictures that are in there, etc., are all right there. I'm not going to replicate it in the show notes. They're going to say, go to the actual podcast. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Because how often would you click through from a podcast episode you're listening to the website?
Not very often. Like if I'm going to click through to something, it's going to be something that they've called out and like look for the link in the description, right?
Yeah.
So it seems more like busy work is the wrong word, but like buttoning up everything, right? So that there is a connection between, like, the canonical home for this should be the post on your website.
Exactly.
And so this is making that connection official.
Yeah. The YouTube video URL is very handy. Not very appropriate for what I'm doing, my purposes of this one, but for example, Justin Jackson, the panel podcast. Justin, I should have the URL memorized, but where has he got it here? Probably hasn't. It's just launching. Anyways, he has a YouTube version as well as the audio version, and so then Transistor has a nice little YouTube URL feed or URL field so that you can throw in the YouTube video, and then when you put it live on the web, I should just find it here. The panel.com. That seems like it wouldn't be him. No. Here, I know what I can do. We'll just go, since I'm on the. Where's the website? View the website. Okay, so this is his show. This episode, I think, has the YouTube video. He's going to prove me wrong. Oh, yeah, there we go. So YouTube video embedded right away so that people can, again, watch it there if they want to. Transcript is there. They actually added a new feature. You wouldn't have seen this, I guess, because you haven't made the Blue Sky plunge, have you? I haven't seen you.
Maybe you have. I have. I don't use it, but I have an account.
So what they did is... I think through the Blue Sky API, you'd know better than I would as far as how this technically works. But basically, if I share an episode URL of the podcast, so this panelpodcast.com/1, share that on Blue Sky, then replies to that post. I don't know how they track that exactly over, like if I share it, but Justin also shares it. Anyways, replies to that become a comment and discussion on the episode page itself, which is kind of a neat way of building in comments, but also having the social share without having to defer to Elon Musk, I guess is the really nice part. Anyways, I'll keep this open because that'll be handy to come back to for other things here as we do this, because I know I'll forget what the URL is, even though it's pretty simple. And transcripts are obviously what it sounds like, a transcription of the episode, which This I could actually, once I've saved the episode, I can actually just probably copy and paste my blog post over as the transcript. It just helps for obviously accessibility and then also searchability, Google, etc. Finding it. And chapters, or sorry, people, won't skip over that. People would be, again, that's where Justin's got, where did he have it here down below? So for every episode, you can attach who the people are with a bit of metadata about them. These are saved as in your podcast site. So Justin and Brian are the hosts. They have 2 guests on this particular episode, gives them they actually have a little page and shows what episodes they've actually appeared on, which is kind of nice. Just, again, back in the day, this was much harder to do and not nearly as nicely laid out. Obviously, there's social links and etc. all right there, and you don't have to rebuild that every time they're on the episode or a future episode of the pod, as rich people say. And then finally, chapters. You can add chapter markers either embedded in the MP3 file, which I usually do for clients when I'm editing a show, but I can also do it after the fact where I just insert a time code of, at 3, just like you do with YouTube these days. Introduction, let's say 3 minutes, spamming people or whatever. And that gives clickable timestamps on the website, which I think, again, Justin somewhere had. Yeah, so like these kind of things, these chapters. He manually, or I think actually I did those ones, but then also in the podcast app itself, some of them Apple Podcasts does, others do as well. Will support that as a tappable, like skip to the next chapter metadata, which is really slick. Again,
and this is one of those things that like seems useful on the face, doesn't probably get a whole lot of use in the world, but is probably very useful to the podcaster themselves. Because they're the ones who are frequently like, oh, you should listen to my thing about 0 to 1, and now they can go in and quick grab a link. Do you know what I mean? It's like when we're building websites, the search tool that you build into the website, the most frequent user is the website owner themselves.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not unuseful to the world, but it's mostly useful to you.
Yeah. And the slick thing is they've, I think actually credit goes to Dave Rupert for creating this, but time jumps is what he called it, his thing on GitHub. I don't know what the technical term is. Whatever that would be. Supported by browsers, or I forget how websites have to support. Anyways, go listen to shoptalkshow.com for more information. But anyways, basically these are links that you can share. So I could actually share a link right to 3043.
Yeah.
And it was something that he developed before YouTube started doing that. Not that YouTube copied him, I don't think. But anyways, makes it very, very easy to like share a point in a podcast where you want it to be like, hey, they're talking about organic search here. So just click this link rather than like clicking it and then having to find it, et cetera.
Very sensible.
So, but yeah, for a marketer types, like Justin's a really good marketing guy. Like he can go in and very quickly find like, oh, there's that conversation we had about this, and I want to share a little segment of that. It makes it super easy to find that. Obviously, there's a transcript as well these days, which is also makes it super easy for podcasters to be able to find stuff.
And there's that interesting one that's a call to action.
This here, yeah.
Yeah.
So he's got, I think he bolded that, I would guess. Like it's because there is basic.
So he just put a bold tag in the.
Yeah. So
in
you
his
can
text. Okay. So it's not, the system isn't treating it special for some reason. Okay.
No, I know they've toyed with that idea of trying to build some, because that's the eternal quest for podcasters. Like we want feedback. We want some sort of thing beyond a tweet or a like.
Sure. But this seems like very much the long tail of features you could build, but is anybody going to use it?
Yeah. Like voicemail, like click here and just like send us a voicemail with like a built-in recording app right in the website. Actually he's using one here, like Clarity Flow, which I think is Brian Castle, one of the co-hosts. So you could use that. And like that still is one step removed where you have to go to the website. You have to then click that. And then you maybe would leave them a voicemail. And for every podcaster. Which is all
the more unlikely when you consider the person listening to it has probably just got their headphones on and they're walking around doing errands or something.
Like the only way you could ever reliably hope to get sort of feedback would be if you could just say like to your voice assistant phone person thing, like, hey, send Justin a voicemail back to this podcast I'm listening to right now, and then record that, and then it would just go. Like that's the only way this would ever happen because nobody.
Technically possible,
Yeah,
but pretty unlikely that anybody's ever going to implement it.
exactly. So, but it's still sought after by SaaS builder
Sure.
software nerds because they all think they're going to crack it. But it's just human behavior. Like, well, you're washing dishes, right? And you listen to your podcast.
Right, exactly.
How are
Am I
you
going
going
to
to
drop
tap?
everything to respond to this? Yeah.
Yeah, no matter how urgent it is. So I'll like as someone who knows podcasters love feedback. I'll text myself an episode and even the time code, like because you can share, at this point here or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
1 out of 10 times I might remember to actually follow through on that. Like it's yeah. So what I'm going to do for this podcast episode this is the blog post here. Oh yeah, I was going to grab this image. Let's see if I can
It's
copy.
Bob and Doug.
So you can add, artwork here. Can I paste? Let's see. No, I can't paste to a block, right? I have to, so if I just hit paste right now, it's just going to, who knows where. Okay. I'll just save that to the desktop and then grab that from the desktop. I think it was just a scoop. That's Fortnite something. So episode artwork makes for, again, more for the, if you had a podcast website, makes it handy to have like each episode have its own little artwork in the list. So like episodes right now, he's just got 2, but like, so this one has 1 episode artwork. This one has different episode artwork. This is actually the show artwork. So he didn't put a custom episode artwork in here. That's up here. And then this is the actual episode custom artwork. So makes for a nice way of sort of differentiating in the view. It would actually show up very small in your podcast player app as well. So handy way to have that. So now if I hit, I'm going to actually schedule this. I think they can let me schedule in the back or in the back in the past is the right word I'm trying to say.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So not that it really matters what time it was when I wrote that, but let's say 2 p.m. Save and publish. So now I can go to distribution because it has an episode.
Now you've checked all the boxes.
Yeah. So I can submit it to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc., all the way down the line. So I'm going to start with, I think they actually take care of most of them automatically, other than Apple Podcasts, I think, is a little more complicated. So I'll just, let's just do a brief divergent into why you might not want to submit your podcast as Spotify podcasts. They would be like the equivalent, I don't know, back in the day, like a walled garden of Facebook or whatever, in a sense, for some podcasters. For some, some podcasters see it as like the gold rush. They're like, that's the only way you get views. That's the only way you get discovered. That's the only way to whatever. It's kind of like you have to be on Spotify podcasts. For other folks who are a little bit more wary of the money and et cetera, that Spotify, I think we've ranted about this already in previous conversations.
Yeah, a little bit.
Just to say, I probably won't for this. Like I don't really care if anybody it gets discovered because it'll only be likely people who want to listen to the audio version of my podcast and for my own vanity of seeing number go up. And whereas, I don't necessarily trust, not in like things would happen before they would just use your podcast for nefarious reasons. Like you would have opportunity potentially to remove it. It's not like it's some, I don't know. It's not quite like Musk Twitter garbage level fears.
Right.
I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, they aren't, the podcast industry themselves is not like who they care about. Ultimately, they are just using podcasts right now as a way to build a bigger library. And so we'll see what they do with that, I guess, in the long run. So you could say Amazon would be probably the similar thing, but I already pay for Prime, so I'm already part of the problem or whatever. I could see Justin them adding like eventually just one-click submit my show to all of the things, but I guess right now it's not too bad. So these will all be, as they go out, they'll be approved, pending. It's all machine approved unless it hits some sort of flag where like, you had the N-word rife throughout your podcast description or whatever, something horrific. And then it might get flagged as like, no, we're not actually going to approve that one. But barring anything like that, you're going to be approved. And then all these other services that are podcast apps, some you may recognize, some you may have no clue they exist. Basically, once your show is kind of within Apple Podcast, then a lot of these other shows will pick it up automatically from Apple Podcast, or you can submit it directly yourself and Do you remember SoundCloud? Still hanging around.
Yeah, still a thing.
Still, they went through. That's another one where they went through a brief, like, we're going to host your podcast for almost free, and then kind of a year later or so or whatever, kind of shut that all down. So then people had to move, and so
Right.
the only reason I'm not doing here, I'm just going to switch to just us for a second. I just don't know if this is going to pop up any sort of. Okay, so that's safe. We'll start here. So there's a few things. You do need an Apple ID in order to have your show submitted to Apple Podcasts. That's how they track who's submitting a show, which makes it a little safer for them. And then you actually go to the Apple Podcast app and submit your RSS feed from Transistor. Apple basically doesn't allow show companies slightly what they would be, I guess, second tier maybe podcast hosts. They're not as big as some other podcast hosts in terms of corporate power or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have access to the same API that other places would. But you have to do a little bit more manual, even this manual version is infinitely easier than it used to be back in the day to get your show on Apple Podcasts. So I'm going to just copy my RSS feed, which is, I should just show this here. Up at the top here, your RSS feed, copy to clipboard. Now I'm going to go over and just start this process quickly just to make sure that it doesn't show any sort of Apple passwordy things. Or any questions while I'm doing this behind the scenes?
I don't think so. It's all straightforward and stuff that. So if let's say you tell WordPress, I'm doing a podcast, and it's going to spit out a podcast specific version of your RSS feed.
Yeah.
What specifically does Transistor provide on top of that? I'm supposing that the most important thing it provides is hosting for the files.
Right. Yeah. In terms of why you would like, it used to be, I don't know what it would be these days, because like everything eventually ends up on Amazon S3, right? Sort of, or Cloudflare, whatever their version of that is. And so it used to be definitely like the CDN, the distribution of the file would be better with an actual podcast host because they're kind of designed around actually hosting podcasts. Mm-hmm. But these days, I don't imagine that's really the case anymore. So the main thing they would give you, sorry, I'm trying to type and talk. That's going to be a recipe, even though I asked you. I have to sign in with the pass key. The main thing they would give you is like information about your podcast, metadata, and stats and analytics that are helpful to have for a podcast, as well as building a website that looks.
Right.
So I have to do my face here and get away from the mic. I would argue, you and I would probably differ here maybe, but I would argue that Transistor is good at hosting podcasts and getting them out to the world, and then displaying the metadata for that podcast in an easy to use, easily presented, even for mobile version that's much more friendly to phones and stuff than what WordPress and even like a custom developer nerd who does an amazing job. You don't have to keep up to date with what the podcasting metadata and RSS feed, et cetera, world is like in order to
that makes sense.
So that's where I would generally suggest people do that. The one exception that I like, and there's others, but the one exception that I would say is, so just for an example, I'll switch back here. It's Shipped That Way is a podcast client of mine who it's a design, like they're a software developer. He does interviews with other developers or people involved in HR and tech and stuff like that. And basically, Alan Pike is the host's name. They built this on top of, I want to say Simplecast, I think is who they're hosted by. I forget. I don't actually handle the publishing. I just do the editing. But basically, they built a custom website, and then they just use all the information. They went out and grabbed these logos. They went and built the box for them, RSS feed, a spot for the transcription. And so it is possible to do, very possible if you know what you're doing. But then as soon as, for example, Overcast changed their logo, are you, the software developer, going to notice that? Or, Transistor would obviously update, and then instantly anybody hosted with Transistor is going to get the new logo.
Yeah.
So if you enjoy or have somebody who enjoys or gets paid to enjoy maintaining that kind of stuff, then do the custom website because it's always going to be more like what you want, obviously, and exactly how you'd like to lay it out. Because this is far and away one of the better custom podcast websites I have come across, and not just biased because they're a client. Yeah, because even another client, interrupt me at any point here. Another client of mine, Shop Talk Show, they use, so Chris Coyer, Dave Rupert, they host it with WordPress. Their podcast itself, the files are technically hosted at Simplecast, so similar to what Ship That Way is. But, and they like, because they like fiddling with websites, so and it was set up 600 episodes ago on WordPress with then feeding from that. So effectively for this show, I have to write up all the metadata inside WordPress and then also open up Simplecast to upload the file there. I don't put any metadata into Simplecast because the RSS feed is actually served by the WordPress site that they run. But it is sort of two apps, or whatever you want to call that I'm maintaining in order for the show to exist. And
sure, but you're not doing that much duplicate work.
No. I'm uploading the podcast to Simplecast, grabbing the URL, throwing that back into WordPress.
Simplecast is grabbing the information from WordPress.
Yes. Well, actually, no. They're just in their case, they're just a simple CDN. They don't even use the RSS feed from Simplecast. They built their own years ago. So it's a bit of a rickety. That's the case where, they've looked at moving off of it because they don't care as much anymore about all of that. But it does allow Chris, in particular, who's very WordPress savvy, to be able to just custom code it however he wants it to lay out. So, okay. So back to, feel free to interrupt or ask questions too, but back to Apple Podcasts here. Oh, I should probably shut down one password. I'm going to add a show with an RSS feed. You can see behind the scenes here, there's like all the various shows I've added over the years. That's why I should have checked here actually to make sure. I used to have I think I still do have like a podcast version of my microblog as well. They give you a podcast. Okay, where am I here? I'm going to my dashboard, Transistor dashboard, and I want the RSS feed. Copy that. And then I'm going back to here, throwing that in. I'm going to say this does not contain third-party content. I can optionally put my information here, but it's going to pull it in from the RSS feed.
What's defined as third-party content?
If you had, legally it would be if you're using anything from anybody else who like someone else's, like a TV show, a movie, you're using audio clips, you're using music from a band. Apple in particular wants to know about that, and then obviously across all countries and regions, and I don't even know what happens if I've never had to select that box. So officially that's the rule. Don't use other people's stuff, obviously, in your show. Do podcasters use stuff in people's shows? Absolutely. I was was producing a U2 fan podcast for a number of years. We were connected enough to people in management where they said, no, you're not allowed to do that. Look the other way and whatever, right? Like, so we would include 10-second clips of just like, this is Mysterious Ways and whatever, or live show stuff where it's a little less critical for any copyright people. But and that was always the question with podcasts in particular, was like, I want to include my favorite band's music. Can I do that? Legally, no, unless you have approval. And they've signed over rights. But even then,
But what if you have like an intro song that you've paid for and have the rights to? Do you still need to click this show? Oh, this show has rights to its third-party content. I actually hadn't read the label.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Where someone else actually owns it, but they've given you the right to use it. I've never, I'm sure big enough podcasts and big enough corporations or whatever will have to click that box and fill out all sorts of legal forms.
Got it. Okay.
Chances are, if you're clicking that box, you have a lawyer on retainer for your podcast or your brand or whatever. But yeah, suffice to say, you can get in trouble. Do people do it anyways? Absolutely. Not very many people that I know of have been sued or had to whatever. They might get a cease and desist notice if it's used enough. But there's also shows where we've seen it just like used gratuitously and nobody's blinked an eye. It all depends on how litigious the company is that an artist, let's say, is hired to manage their rights for. So Bono himself could probably care less if you asked them, "Can I use your song?" But obviously the
Sure.
Island
Right.
Records or whoever it
His
is,
publishing company is
yeah,
different.
yeah,
Yeah.
would just say like, actually, no, we want everything. So one thing to be aware of, I guess, within Apple Podcasts. So again, if you're not familiar, all the different podcast hosting services don't actually host the file. It's just a directory of podcasts, with the exception of Spotify, where they actually do host the file and kind of redirect and maybe add things to it. That's the sleazy part of what they may be doing. But basically, you can actually make the show available. Let's just use Apple Podcasts because that's the one that has the most granular information aside from Spotify. You can actually make it not available in certain countries if you needed to for some reason, legally or for financial reasons or whatever, where you can say, don't make this available in whichever country.
Sure. Yeah.
And it just wouldn't show up in their store. Similar to the way the App Store works for, some apps are available in Canada and some aren't, and vice versa. Apple will actually auto-generate transcripts now, which is kind of handy. But you can also say, no, just use the ones I want. Unless I don't provide them, then use Apple's generated ones. And then actually for publication, like for as far as if it was a big launch of like Tim's new show where he's talking to a famous person to Bono about his new album or whatever, and you don't want the show to even be available because it's like a big launch, you could actually delay release. Which these are all things that didn't used to be available to us as podcasters way back in the day, so it's all kind of neat. And then what was the other thing? They do have their subscription service that they've built now, where you can actually subscribe to a podcast, financially wise, within Apple Podcasts, and then you could allow certain episodes to be only for people who are paying you through Apple Podcasts. And,
Got it.
But then you have to pay Apple for membership in their developer program to do that, so it's not just for fun. It's like $100 and some a year, I think. I don't know, you might know better than I do.
That sounds about right.
So once it's approved, the thing that kind of is a bit vexing with Apple Podcasts in particular, whereas all the other ones were kind of like, yeah, we're subscribed or we're submitted and away you go, is under distribution here. Like some of these will probably be, these are pending, but these ones
Ready
are
to
basically
go.
done. Apple could come
I
back
remember
and
this.
say,
Apple takes a minute.
It used to be weeks, but these days it's minutes to days, but to a couple days. But it could be something as simple as the last one, actually, like that micro podcast one I submitted. The artwork was, I want to say it was like not a JPEG, but a PNG or something, even though PNG was something with the artwork that was not quite right according to the official spec, even though Transistor validates it and approves it all, which it is. Every other podcast service listed it just fine, but there was something about it that was off. And so once I changed that, then it flipped to, but I had to like reach out to Apple Podcast to find out why my thing wasn't being approved, basically. And that show wasn't actually hosted with Transistor. It was with someone else, like Microblog. So it was a little bit more opaque as far as information. So, but yeah, so just to show you, actually, I can pick one of my old podcasts here. I guess I don't have any ratings or reviews to show you, so never mind. You have to go through each country. Let's see if, no, something's wrong. I guess I can't show you anything. This is where normally you would be able to see ratings and reviews, but apparently something's maybe wrong with my Apple account or just with Apple. So how does that all sit? We're around an hour, and we've kind of got
we've got the podcast up and running.
So if I go to episodes, I could actually, this one is published technically, I could actually share this link. Oh, actually, that's what I should show you. So let's put it back to my blog. Let's go back to that post. This one. So right now I've got this little player. I'm going to delete that and then go over back to Transistor's dashboard for that episode. And what's the easiest way here? I think there's other places to find this, but the share tab under the little triple dots. So simple sharing page is what I want. You could alternatively have it start at a certain point if you wanted to for some reason, and paste that in. So you can see like my episode artwork is right there. Everything ready to go. Actually, I should go ahead.
Building this little widget is something that Ghost is doing, your CMS.
Well, Transistor supports what is it called? Embed or something, some thing.
Oh, yeah.
So like if I let me me just see here. I never know what's going to appear if I go to some
So
random social
right,
network.
so you give your website the share URL, and then on the blog post page, it reaches out to that Transistor URL and says, Transistor says, "Oh, I've got a little widget for you."
Yeah. So I go like on Blue Sky, for example, just to pick on one here, and I paste that same link in. It gives me the artwork and the description. I think testing out a post with Transistor embed. Here, we'll just
Right.
post this and see what happens. I think it gives the player. It definitely used to on like Twitter and other ones. Oh, maybe not. So it'll link to the social media version, like a quick. It's a
Yeah, I
website
mean, I think
effectively,
Blue
but
Sky
it's
is
on
just
Transistor.
reaching out for the metadata, whereas Ghost is either building or being delivered that little widget there.
Yeah. So now if I don't remember if I saved that. I can update this, and then if I refresh, yeah, it'll probably being cached. There we go.
Yeah.
Now I got the player.
When there's daily,
Right.
if not hourly.
Yeah, interesting. Slick.
So now that what this gives me, so like I was saying before, there's that social media page. I think it's with under more info, one of these tabs within this. So this little widget has submenus effectively. Yeah, on this, like, so as the distribution side of it, as the various services come online with supporting it, having it listed in their service, they'll just automatically appear in the subscribe page. And then I think if I had the social media stuff, it would actually appear here as well, if like my Twitter account,
That makes
or
sense.
my Blue Sky or whatever. So then once effectively what I would probably do though is on my blog, let's say in this little call out box, feel free to subscribe to the audio version of my blog and then I'd probably, this is where it's, if I build the website, if I use their website, then I get a feed, an automatically built like /subscribe page, which is kind of handy. But I could just, some people just like, you kind of default to the Apple Podcast link or whichever one you kind of use the most, or you think people are going to use the most. Distribution, I could, like, RSS feed is for nerds, obviously. But like this, for example, now this is in Pocket Cast, sorry. And they'll give me the app. Yeah. So I could list that, let's say, if I wanted to, or whatever. Figure out where and when, how you want people to point to and subscribe to your podcast, whatever the best way is. This, ideally, I'd like that share page, but I'm trying to think of how to get that without having a whole separate website. I don't think there's a way. I'd have it be automated so that as things get updated, as I put more online, I don't have to.
Yeah.
So I think if I do that, I can do, right. So right now, that would be, a website version of it. This subscribe page is what I'm after, where it's just automatically generated. I could just use that rather than linking to anything else, just because then it'll be up to date. So I might put it like that. Sorry, I'm hearing, probably not getting picked up by the mic, but I think my kids are having an intense game of Fortnite right now. Wherein they yell at each other for not saving each other. So now if I click, where am I here? Back to here. Refresh. So there they go. They can subscribe. So I can make that look nicer, obviously make it look more like my website, so it feels less like a very distant version of my website or whatever. But for the purposes of the 5 people that might actually go through and subscribe,
it's fine.
It's more for just the ability to have this player, again, going back to vanity and analytics, to be able to see now how many times, I'm not in the actual version of it. How do you use the internet, Tim?
Hourly updates of.
So each time, I don't remember what the time is. Let's say it's 5 minutes or 5 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever. And that'll then show up as analytics here once more. I don't have 470,000 downloads, but once more people
Once
have
you have
listened.
stats.
Yeah. So, for example, this is my old podcast just to show what analytics look like. You'll get it over time, all time. So way back when I actually did the podcast in 2019. And the first 30 days of downloads, how many downloads per episode, podcast players that played it, what kind of devices were using it, platforms, and then where people are located. So
Cool.
No tariffs back then, I guess. So lots of U.S. listeners. Yeah.
Oh, data tariffs. That would be terrible.
Data tariffs. Yikes. Don't give them ideas. Does that answer the, or I mean, this wasn't the question you asked. I was the one saying I was going to do this, but did I answer your unasked question of how to embed a podcast player and set up an audio feed for a blog?
Yes.
Is there a use case? Do you see like would clients ever, not for my purpose, I just mean like, I'm just curious, would it even be a thing that you would pitch to clients ever, audio on your podcast or on your website? I mean,
I mean, that's the sort of thing that people like used to tack on to the package that they offered, right? We could set you up with a podcast and you can do this thing, but like, not everybody's in a position to do a podcast, but I do have at the moment, I have one podcast who is a cathedral here in Manhattan, and they obviously have events and services, and they put out, they do live streaming of their services, and they put out a podcast of the sermons.
Right.
So yes, that is like it. So the answer is, as always, it depends on the client. Does the client have a use for it? Then yes, I will pitch it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And then by the way, if there's anybody in YouTube or Twitch land watching, feel free to throw a question in the comments while you're watching, and it'll pop up here.
And actually, because of this conversation, I have a meeting with them either next week or the week after, just to check in. We do like a quarterly check-in. But I might ask them, like, it's been a while since we've talked about the podcast, and I could say, is there anything that's, could be easier? Do you want to grow it? Blah, blah, blah. Maybe we should think about offloading some of this to Transistor.
Right.
Because it would be easier in terms of making it more accessible, both on a platform standpoint and with a transcript and all that kind of stuff. It might take some of the burden off of them in terms of content input.
Yeah. And the other side of it too, that I think most people don't recognize, especially non-web nerds like us, wouldn't recognize that how easy it is actually, whether they're with Transistor or another podcast host, how easy it is to embed that episode, a particular episode. Like let's use the sermon idea, but like you have an event on a Sunday and you have audio recorded from that, but then you're talking about it on Thursday in another blog post about something that's happening 2 weeks from now, but you wanted to reference that audio. You just embed the player right there rather than saying, go listen to our podcast over here.
Yeah.
Or
and that's definitely something, that's definitely a level of integration that we don't have. Cause like we have a CMS, and like podcast episodes are an object in the CMS. And then that MP3 player is an object within the podcast episode. And so we have MP3 players that can pop up when we reference the MP3 file, but they're not all that portable.
Right. Yeah, like having the subscribe and share buttons or whatever built into the player also, or whatever you might want and things like that. So, and also the file would be, if the file is referenced probably on your end, wherever it's referenced from, you'd get some analytics on each time it's played, no matter where, even if it's just the file URL, assuming they use the like CDN approved version or whatever, if they have stats on it, like they don't have to.
I don't think we even do that. I think we're just like it's a small enough population of listeners that like it's mainly just people who couldn't get to the cathedral that Sunday. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or people who are in the community but don't go to the services for whatever reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that number is pretty small, so we just host those files ourselves. And I think it's been fine, but it could be easier and more accessible and more informative.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other side of the reason to split those two worlds, like your website from your podcast, I guess, might be, I'm just thinking of another scenario where I had, like, again, churches are probably one of the, I think Justin was saying, like, for Transistor even, there's like, don't quote, I don't know what the actual number is, but it's some larger number than you might suspect, is just, that's who is paying for podcast hosting because they want to be able to serve up audio each week. Yep. And, but also having the ability to say, hey, tech guy, person, who does the sermon audio, You just have to do it here, but you don't have to know how to use WordPress, and vice versa for the WordPress folks. Please don't touch our podcast because we don't want you fiddling with that. Just put the newsletter on the website here or whatever. And so like, separations of concerns can sometimes be helpful when you're if you're big enough to delegate, I guess, or have volunteers. Sometimes it's handy to be able to have that, not because you don't have to necessarily set up like user permissions and all that kind of stuff. You can just be like, you have the Transistor login, you have the WordPress login, and never the two shall meet effectively. So one thing that actually I should just quickly say, just on that note, is Transistor does have, I'll show it with this one here. Once you have more than one episode, you can actually have an automatic embed. So you could have just a player iframe that would be embed the latest episode, let's say, and you can customize what it looks like. Or you could have a playlist. So you could have the last, whatever the number is, or maybe it's, I don't know, 10. And you could have that as an automatic embed so that each, like you just have /podcast, let's say, even if it's not the actual podcast host, but you're just like, that's where you can go listen to the latest episode, and it'll just always have the last 10 episodes right there. They can just play it right there in light and away you go. And so again, lots of podcast hosting companies will have something like that, but just to make you aware of that as an option for people. You can choose how many episodes would appear in there and customize the colors and etc. So very cool. All these things are like kind of like blow my mind of me 10 years ago trying to like, how am I going to display this properly? So, all right. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
And whoever happened to watch, if you want to keep up with this little live stream conversations, I post videos to the YouTube channel linked below. Wherever you happen to be seeing this, there'll be more of them, and there's a playlist there. We also try and stream every week, Thursdays, 1:45 CST. What's that? EST is, you're the same right now? No.
Eastern, it's 4 o'clock right now.
So 2:45?
I think I'm an hour ahead of you. Yeah.
2:45-ish, and subscribe or like or thumbs up or follow or whatever, wherever we do those things.
Send us a postcard.
Yeah, exactly. Fax me your TV address and I'll send you the show. Okay. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.